started doing these series of interviews or conversations with people about their childhood, I had intended to do 31. But numerous listeners and viewers have reached out to me wanting to share their memories. So perhaps I will continue, maybe not as frequently as one a day. But even when I started, I was very clear who I wanted for my 31st interview on the last day of August, celebrating Madras city. And that is historian Chithra Madhavan. She is a rock star, and in Chennai, everybody knows Chithra Madhavan. And when she speaks, everybody listens. Her knowledge is amazing. I've listened spellbound to her talks and what she writes about temples and history. It is truly, truly incredible. The work I've done documenting games in temples of Chennai brought me face to face with Chithra numerous times and have used her as a sounding board a lot. So Chithra is here for two reasons. One, to share her own childhood memories, which is what we will start with, and also to tell us why it's so important to document our memories. So, over to Chithra. Chithra, tell me, did you play or were you researching even when you were a little girl?
So thank you for having me over, Vinita. It's a pleasure to be here. And I know of all the wonderful work that you have done. Congratulations and keep going.
Thank you, Chithra.
So the last thing on my mind was research when I was a kid. I was as playful as anybody else. And I grew up in a very quiet neighborhood in Adiyar in Gandhinagar. And I used to go to the school called St. Michael's. It was quite a walk to school because we stayed near where Mother Hospital is, and St. Michael's is at the other end of that road. So I used to walk to school in the morning with our domestic help taking me there and walk back again in the evening. So it was a lovely, lovely quiet neighborhood. And when I drive down that road now, the change is, so much. I can't believe that this is the place. So my childhood was like everybody else's at that point of time. So many neighbors' children were there and we were out on the road. It was a cul-de-sac. It was a dead end. So that road was all ours. We could do whatever we wanted. And there were very few cars those days, and those who drove cars drove them slowly. So that space was ours.
The safety of just being able to play on the road.
The safety, and parents just let us be. So we turned up home. Sometimes we went to the neighbors. Sometimes it was absolutely nice. And most times we played cricket. Girls or boys or whatever. We played a lot of cricket. There were many trees to climb as well. So we climbed many, many trees. Got into a little bit of trouble sometimes, but not much. So yeah, that was there.
Anything specific you can remember getting into trouble?
No, not much at all. I left that to others very cleverly. That was left to the others. No, I didn't get into much trouble at all. That happened later.
What I find interesting in this entire series of interviews and conversations is that the seemingly well-behaved, perfect, very ladylike, if I'd like to use the word, citizens of Chennai have all been climbing trees as children. That is fascinating to hear. It's like, whoa, I can't believe you were up in a tree.
There were trees to climb and we were allowed to climb and we did. Then where are the trees now?
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun.
What about with your grandparents, parents? Did you ever play indoors with them? Or did they tell you stories, teach you games like Pallanguri or Daikattam or
Snakes and Ladders?
Paramapadam
was what I played through and through and through, and I loved it. So I played Paramapadam with my grandmother who lived till she was 95. She passed away only in 2015. And I played Paramapadam with her mother, my great-grandmother, who lived till she was 92. So it was a wonderful memories, and you know how when you roll the dice, you pray. And
Yeah.
so
Kiss the dice.
so imagine playing with one's great grandmother.
That is
I had
truly
that luck.
lovely.
It was lovely. So she used to sit on her bed, and we used to put that board game there, and I was on one side, and there was a lot of hooting and shouting and playing. It was lovely. It was lovely. And the other game that I used to play with my grandmother sitting cross-legged on the floor was the shori. So, you know, the nalu, the four things used to throw anje,
and then pick.
And then when it came upside down, that was mokka. So we used to shout together. And my grandfather used to come and he said, what happened? What happened?
No, say that again. So you throw the shori and then what happens?
It lands on its spine. That side.
Yeah.
Isn't that called mokka?
Okay. So and then what do you do with the shori?
I don't remember what we did.
Okay, only remember throwing it.
I remember throwing it, and she was far, far better at all that than me. Mine always landed on its back, hers hardly ever did. So there was some trick there which I didn't inherit.
You suspect she cheated?
It's just that she always won. That's all I know. And then she and I, she was in a part of Besant Nagar which was close to today's Shivnada school and yesterday's The School and Blue Cross. One of the quietest parts of the city. Huge garden in front of her house, and she had a green thumb, so you used to have vegetables and all kinds of things. So we decided to go for a walk one day. And grandmother and granddaughter went, and we landed up at some public library in Shastri Nagar.
Okay.
And then we found some nice books there. So it was almost 6. I don't know what time it was. We lost ourselves in the books. And then she said, time to go. We slowly walked back. What we didn't realize is that the entire house panicked because we'd been...
Both had been missing.
3 years. And neither of us realized that we'd been gone that long. So great-grandmother panicking, my parents would come to pick me up to take me back home. And where did you go? We just looked at them. We were lost, you know, because we were such good friends. This 10-year-old kid and a 60-year-old grandmother. So, Chennai was so different. There's no way they could get in touch with us.
There were no cell phones.
We were. So all that happened. Wonderful,
that's
wonderful memories.
So what kind of books did you spend reading at the library? Do you remember?
I don't remember what I did at that library, but the general books, Light and stuff like that. Oh yes.
And did grandmothers tell you stories?
Plenty of stories, in fact, about her childhood. And she used to spend her holidays in Srirangam because that's where her mother came from. And their ancestral house was very close to the temple. So they used to cut across the temple to go to the other side.
How cute.
So whenever I go to Srirangam for my own research, I think of, the route they used to take. And it's very vivid. She said, through this Gopuram and out through that Gopuram. Thinking what kind of a life that would have been, you know. And that place also would have been much quieter than what it was today.
Absolutely.
I just wish I could get back. I could get into a time machine and go back.
So you seem to have had a fun childhood, and many of the people I've spoken to have talked about this, the stillness, the peace, how the roads were quiet, how 4 cars will be on the road in the whole day. And the more I'm seeing it, I have been fascinated. I think these conversations have been even more fascinating than I anticipated. But as a historian, how important do you think it's for us to document these memories?
It's very, very important because the next generation is not going to have a clue as to how this city was. You may have some old pictures showing you very few people on a road that is now jam-packed, or how the station looked, how the court looked, how this looked, that looked. But those are still, and you may have some videos as well, that's there. But it's extremely important to document what old-timers...
I was thinking of something, when we were kids growing up, and I'm sure you would have the same experiences. When you spend time with your grandparents and all that, they will talk about their life. Like you were saying, your grandmother used to cut across. But today, children don't get time with their grandparents. 2 reasons. Sometimes they don't live together. If they do, they don't have the time. both sides. I think even grandmothers are
They are
very
also
busy
super
today.
busy, I know.
So this kind of time where you just sit, shoot the air, talk about old times, how you went to such and such a shop and or bought a shirt for 2 rupees, as my grandfather used to tell me. You don't hear these stories growing up. So while I do agree that it's important to document how Chennai was, I'm hoping that these stories also become a way of people understanding how people used to live, and through that, the cultural, social mores of the time,
Definitely.
So,
it is 100% necessary to record this. Really, it needs to be done. I'm happy you're doing it. Really happy you are.
And I'm guessing children will be more willing to listen to these stories when you talk of it from the point of view of childhood mischief and fun, rather than, I'm teaching you about the past kind of thing.
And this is in the form of a conversation, and you're talking to so many people with varied interests and different backgrounds from different parts of Chennai. So I think it's a very worthwhile attempt.
But tell me one more thing. As a historian, I know you teach as well. History has become in schools very much remember the dates, remember the wars, remember what people did. You learn about the Mughals, you may learn about, unfortunately you don't, but even if you did, the Cholas, the Pallavas, the Pandyas, okay. We learn very little about social history, how people lived in those times. I remember at most maybe learning about the Indus Valley civilization and how, they had drainage systems and things like that. But that's it, you learn it as a fact in a history book, not how it impacted day-to-day life. So my question is it necessary for us and for history teachers to try to build that into
100%, 200%. Socio-economic and cultural history is a must. We have for far too long in this country focused on political history and burying the rest.
Yeah.
It's very necessary to know how people lived, trade. So economy affects culture, affects society. Of course, the political background. Yeah,
absolutely. Against the backdrop of politics.
Political history.
But how it impacts the day-to-day people.
It's 100%. It is phenomenally important because, first of all, a child will relate to that better than wars.
Absolutely.
So, how people lived. I'm just saying, you could take them to a monument near you, whatever monument that is, explain local history, how people lived. Now, how do you think your grandfather, what do you think he did for a living? What kind of a place do you think he lived in? Definitely. It's necessary. It's mandatory. It's not happening.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll make a little bit of a dent in the whole thing, a tiny wee little dent.
We really hope. What kind of board games they played? Make a child go to a temple and look at this board game. Do you understand what it is? Shall we play something over here? Or draw this, let's go back to school and do something? It will get the child interested.
No, even things like, you were talking about climbing trees or cul-de-sacs and how people were allowed to. I mean, today when your child is out of sight for some time, you go into panic.
Worried.
And with cell phones and everything, those kinds of things.
Definitely.
The change in life as you know it is something.
It's changed phenomenally in this one generation.
Yeah.
What we experienced as children, that peace and the calm and that safety is just not there these many decades later. And we are scared, like you say, when a child doesn't come home even 15 minutes after he or she is supposed to have. That's not a nice way. And at least let them know what kind of a city their previous generation lived in. That's vital. 100%. And who knows, we may go back to those times. Let's live in hope.
Live in hope that
we can
recreate the charm of playing traditional games
under the tree.
With families, under the tree, sipping coffee for 3-4 hours at a time.
Who knows? Everything may come a full circle in one generation. And then they'll listen to recordings such as these. Thank God these were there.
Your lips to God's ears, Chithra. Your lips to God's ears. It's all about the games, isn't it?
And wonderful work that you're doing once again. Congratulations. May this continue to inspire
And
youngsters.
we'll continue to document social, cultural history of play.
We'll do.
Yeah.
All of us
Thank
together.
you.
Thank you, Vinita. Thanks so much.